Good morning and welcome to the webinar this morning, KML 101. We're going to show you guys how to create some awesome maps in Google Earth and Google Maps. So just off the top, this is being recorded, so don't you worry, you can see it later and review it at your own leisure. I'm Aaron Koning, Product Manager for FME Server, and I'm here with
Dean Hintz, Senior Analyst with Pro Services.
In the back, we got a few people answering questions. You can see the little red arrows pointing to, we've got Mark, Dan, and Iris, who are all eagerly awaiting your questions, so please do write in with any questions you might have. And also in the back, taking care of logistics is Stephanie, so quite a group on hand to help us out here today. And a little bit of an agenda. We're going to start with an introduction, talk a little bit about safe software, probably go a little faster through that. Then we're going to get into some kind of introductory information on KML, a bunch of live demos, wrap it up with QA, and at the end you will get an email with a link to all of the demos, the files that we've used today, as well as the recording. So that's what we're doing today. Safe Software, just a little introduction. We're a little Canadian company, about 95 people. Founded in 1993, what we do is we do data transformation. We help power the flow of data. So if you've worked with us, you understand what that means. Otherwise, you're going to learn a little bit about how we power the flow of data to KML today, and from, well, any number of different formats, right, Dean?
Yeah. And how many customers do we have, Aaron?
I think around 10,000, something like that.
Yeah.
In about 120 different countries.
Yeah.
So just a quick overview of the product lines we have. We have a FME desktop product, which allows you to author your different data transformation tasks. Then we've got FME server, which allows you to kind of start to automate those tasks, bring those tasks to the web, allow you to push notifications and receive notifications. Really more of an enterprise product. And really, we're really excited. We're not going to talk much about it, but FME Cloud is a new product offering that really is kind of commoditized is the FME server experience. So you don't have to maintain any hardware or anything. You simply pay as you go to use data transformation. Really cool product.
So there's no locked in 3-year contract on that one?
That's it. Pay as you go. You can lock yourself in though. Don't worry. We have an option for that.
Okay.
But go to fmecloud.com and sign up, and you'll see more information there. It's really exciting. We're on to our first poll this morning. So we want to know. Go ahead, Dean. Dean will fire up that poll. What is your FME level of expertise?
All right.
So we want to kind of know, do you know a lot about FME? Do you know a little bit? Where are you in the chain here?
So yeah, you want to select just one here, not all.
Can you select all? Is that an option?
No.
Okay.
Although, FME is a big product, so there's some areas where I'm a novice because I just haven't
Absolutely.
used that part of FME yet.
Absolutely. Yeah. 3D and point cloud's a little new for me, that sort of stuff. But
yeah.
okay, I think we'll probably close it in just a couple seconds here. And
got about 80%, so I'm closing it.
82. Anytime you get over 80, I like that option.
Do we want to share?
Yeah, share the results there.
Oh, good. So we've got quite a few new users here.
Oh, okay. Is that being shared on your screen or mine? Oh, that's on both, isn't it? Okay. And a few experts even. A few experts. So that's good to have some experts on board. Never used FME before, 20%. Wow. We're going to get a good overview today, I think, of what we mean when we say workspaces and transformers and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, back to you.
Okay. Onward and upward. If you are new to FME, we don't want to spend a ton of time on that. We will cover off a lot of the stuff you'll see in the weekly intro, but I would encourage everybody who in that 20% to go to the weekly intro, safe.com/weekly intro, and that's a live session with a couple people that you can ask questions. You got Mark and Craig there, and it's the best time to ask live questions and learn what FME is all about. And there's a great getting started page there as well.
Yeah, that has links to a lot of different resources. We've got tutorials and even things on the FME channel on YouTube. So you can work your way through some demos and just to get your feet wet.
Excellent. Yeah. So good resources there. Just a really brief overview of FME. You can see all the different types of data that we handle there, and of course behind that we handle over 300 different formats. And it's not just about formats, is it, Dean? What else? What's important about that?
Well, really, it's the transforming of the data, because going from one GIS format to another, it might be a relatively easy conversion, but we quickly found when we started to support things like CAD or databases that really it's the transformation where the hard work is.
Yeah, you have these different types of data because the data models are different. They're different purposes. Yeah. So as we said, there are 300 plus formats, and we continue to smash through new barrier each year. Really, and that just tells you whether you can use our product, but then behind the scenes, there's a lot of transformation that takes place, and you're going to see some of that today with KML. So on to the Google related formats. We can see we've got some formats here.
Yeah, so there's a number of, we're going to spend most of our time today talking about KML, but there are a number of related formats. There's 3D formats such as SketchUp and Collada, so you can include models within KML and do 3D that way. And then there are the online formats, the Google Fusion Tables and Google Spreadsheet. And that's another handy way to actually put your data in the cloud and incorporate that into your Google Maps.
Yeah, and actually an exciting new format for 2014 we just added was Google Maps Engine, which is it's something I haven't even used yet, and there's already talk of adding another version of Google Maps Engine format to FME. So we're always continually pushing with the Google formats, not just KML.
Mm-hmm.
But this is about KML, so.
Yeah, just a couple words about what is KML. I mean, we've all seen it, but what is it sort of under the hood? And it can be as simple as just a single file, or it can be a whole directory of files, or it can even be a container like a zip file, KMZ, or KMZ for our American friends, which can contain supporting files like raster images, models, like the SketchUp model I mentioned. And so really that whole structure can be a KML data set. So it doesn't really neatly fall into our directory versus file distinction.
It's such a powerful format that you can do a lot of different things with it.
Yeah, you can start simple and you can make it as complex as you want it to be. So,
so as you were saying there, it sits on a virtual globe. You can add the imagery you talked about, and of course your data. Really, that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, and I guess the other neat thing about KML is it's one of those few formats where you can mix so many different kinds of data. You can have both vector and raster. You can have 2D data, 3D data, all mixed together. So it's really actually quite powerful.
Excellent. All right, now we're back to another poll. We want to know, what is your biggest challenge with KML data? And let's see what the options are here. And what are the options there, Dean? Reading, styling.
Yeah, structuring. So that would be any way that you're trying to structure the folders of the data, organize your data. And then there's a whole range of advanced features that you can get into. Network links to link to external resources. Regions, so that's basically controlling what's visible at different zoom levels. Or do you have challenges with data volumes? So how to manage large numbers of users or large volumes of data.
Yeah, and it started off, advanced features was way in the lead, but pretty much everything is catching up at this point.
Although I'd have to say reading is, it's too bad all my demos are about reading, because it doesn't seem, I'm kidding.
No, he's kidding, of course. But still almost 20% reading. I think we'll just give a few more seconds and then we'll close that poll.
Yeah, about 70% voted there.
70%. We like to get up to 80, but we'll take 70 as well.
Okay, so we're closing that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll share that. So there's the results. Yeah, so structuring and styling, yeah, those top three are all pretty close.
Yeah, yeah. So we're going to be covering, well, most of those today, so that's good. Reading we won't, so that's actually We planned it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although I will say that we have continued to improve our reading, so it's not like it's
Yeah.
not important because you do want to sometimes be able to. Sometimes KML data may be the only thing you can get from somebody, and you want to
Absolutely.
get as much as you can out of it.
Yeah, it makes sense, especially over the web. Being able to download that data directly from the web. There's a lot of KML out there for sure. Speaking of, we talked about formats already, but of course, Dean mentioned transformation is really key when you have those different data types and different data models. So being able to go from something like, in here we see a workspace converting LiDAR data and shapefile data into, well, in this case it's a DEM, but it could be KML. You need to be able to change that data model.
Yeah, absolutely, because yeah, LiDAR being a point cloud, it doesn't really relate very closely to anything we're used to using in a GIS. So
Yeah.
you actually have to do a fair bit of processing to get that into the right shape.
And that's where those 400 plus transformers will give you the power to do that.
Yeah, you don't need to use them all in every every workspace, but
have you used them all?
Probably not.
No, me neither. No.
So you can start simple, but yeah, it's kind of like Lego-sized building blocks is the way I like to describe it.
Absolutely.
Speaking of which, I'll run through a couple of the KML supporting transformers. There's actually quite a few other transformers that didn't make it on this list that do relate to KML. These are the ones we'd highlight. I think Google actually gets its own folder in our transformer categories in
it
Workbench.
Does,
yeah. So we'll go through a number of these today, not all of them. So the property setter, that's for setting things like the name and description, and you can also, based on things like the name, control things like the folder structure. We'll see that
the label
in a
as
few
well
minutes.
through there. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, the description relates to the balloon. Under geometry, that's where you can control whether something is extruded or not. So getting into the 3D. Region setter, that's for regionation, so different levels of visibility based on scale. Styling, everything from the points to the lines and polygons and text. And we'll see an example of time series as well in a few minutes. And then the latter ones, we don't have time to go through all of those,
yeah.
But building up fly-throughs, controlling the camera perspective, and that Google Chart API is pretty powerful as well.
Very cool. And there's two on here, or not on here, that one of them I use for sure. What is it? The geometry extractor can do KML.
That's right. You can both extract and replace KML geometry. And I will give a nod to the XML transformer since I'm a big XML fan. The XML templater, for example, can be used to build up HTML for those for the KML descriptions.
And I'm a big WebSocket type guy, so I'm going to shout out the JSON templater.
Oh, there you go.
Which I use later. Haha.
Get the last word on that.
I get the last word. All right. We're back to another poll. So we want to know, where's that data coming from? You've got KML data. It's going to KML. Your data is going to KML, but where's it coming from? Where is it coming from?
So I think with this one we just said select one. So what would be one of your primary sources for your KML data?
Yeah.
And that kind of gives us a feel for what kind of restructuring you might have to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it started out with GIS way in the lead, and the others are pulling up close now.
And I guess in many cases, maybe we could have distinguished between GIS database versus file. A lot of people probably are going to be building this on a spatial database of some kind.
Yes.
If they've got KML services.
Yeah, yeah. But you'd be happy to see over 10% from the sort of web GML, XML crowd. So.
Okay, so we're going to close that and share it. There we go.
All right, so over half coming from GIS. So
yeah.
Not a huge surprise there, I wouldn't say. 2% from other, which we can only speculate on, but
mysterious source.
14% from database Excel. I wonder if that is the non-spatial crowd, primarily Excel, or
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I'm not sure.
But we'll assume that's non-spatial data primarily. All right. Okay. So we're back into it. I think that's one of the last polls before we we finish off the sort of talking aspect here. But now you're gonna lead us on with approach to KML here.
Yeah, I'll just give you guys a high-level overview of a typical workflow. It's not necessarily you're going to need to do all of these things all the time, but these are some of the main tasks that you might need to hit in order to write KML. And again, FME can read KML, but the workflow there really depends on what outputs you want. So this is an easier workflow to go through. So we're going to read, initially you have to read your source data, it doesn't matter what that is, CAD, GIS, other databases. And then you need to reproject everything into WGS lat long 84. And that's pretty important because KML only supports that coordinate system. And if you are going to do things like transfer attributes between features based on location, you want to make sure everything's in the same spatial reference. And then you need to build up the required attributes and geometries for your features. So you might need to use a feature merger to join. You might have to build polygons from line work from a CAD file. So just building up whatever features you're going to display. And then we start to get more KML specific. So the names and IDs and descriptions for your KML features. And the IDs and parents help you control the actual structure of the KML data, so you can nest things in folders. And we'll see how that's important. And then we get into how you package it, so how you control the display. So the display control can be by scale, so KML regions. It can be by time. So as we'll see, there's a time slider, so we can see change over time, or there may even be real-time aspects. So maybe you have a time stamp on the data, or data is streamed in. And finally, sort of recommending near the end to set your styles, because if you would go and set a style at the beginning, it might get changed by some feature manipulations that you're doing.
Yeah, overlays and things like that.
Yeah. And then lastly, there are a number of KML-specific format attributes and parameters that allow you to control things as specific as, let's say, the raster format that you want to use for imagery, or
TIFF or JPEG.
Yeah, and even the file name extension KMZ will automatically zip up that any supporting files into a package. So yeah, that's the kind of thing you set on the output. And so now in terms of the overall approach, yeah, so here just a little more detail on the property setter and the styling. So you can see there the property setter lets you set the name and the description, and we'll see an example of that in a minute. There's also under geometry there altitude, mode, and extrude, and whether or not the object follows the terrain. So there's quite a few. Pretty much almost all my workspaces will have both of these transformers. So that's
these are the main two KML transformers you're going to use.
And the other thing I want to mention about these KML transformers is that we used to have, initially when we first supported KML, you had to set almost everything as a format attribute. So we'll see in a minute what that looks like.
Yeah.
You have all of these KML underscore attributes that you can expose on your destination feature types. And then you'd have to know what those are, you'd have to comb through the docs and figure out what the correct value is to set. And the nice thing about these GUIs that we've made, specialized interface for supporting KML, is you don't have to know any of that syntax. Yeah. You just interact with the GUI, set the colors that you want, the styles that you want. And in the background, FME is setting those tags.
Absolutely.
So now in the approach, there's also some special feature types that you can set, and what these do is basically allow you to control. You can set things like a style, but you can define a style that is available to throughout the workspace. Otherwise, you might have to have 10 stylers in your workspace if you keep using the same style. So if it's something you want to create once and use often, then that's a good way to go. And then also things like ground overlay for raster support. So again, these are some special folders. I guess you could think of them as reserved feature types that you can't use for, you can't come up with your own feature type called, ground overlay or folder and expect to use that to display data.
It's really a unique format in FME in that the name of the feature type kind of dictates how that data, the features will be interpreted.
Yeah, that's right. And we'll see an example of folders in a minute, so we can actually define a folder object and then insert features within that. And these, what you do, how you get these are, you have to go to the writer menu and select import feature type, and you can import from any KML file. And that's why on that slide you'll see a few things that are actually data, like Metro Rail. Those are not special reserved feature types. So any KML file, if you go import feature type, you'll get this list, and then you can define these special format-specific feature types. Now, I did mention format attributes and parameters. So here is an example of what that looks like. On the left side here, we have KML, a bunch of KML icon format attributes, and most of these you can set in the styling transformer, KML styler. But you might find in the documentation something sort of esoteric, some special setting that we don't have the ability to set within a transformer, and you could set it this way. And then there are settings like create attribute table in the description balloon, create folder for feature type. So there are some feature type and format specific attributes or parameters, I should say, that you can control as well. And finally, here's a typical workspace, and yeah, so basically, I won't get into the detail of what this workspace does. Basically, I just wanted to say on the left we've got the data sources that we're reading from, in this case an SDF3 database, and then there are some transformation steps to build up the features that we want, and then we do things like KML property setting to set names and descriptions, and finally styling, and then we write out to KML. So that's a typical workflow on the top half. The bottom half actually we use is a section where you could say that we write to the specialized feature types, in this case a folder.
Defining some folders.
Yeah, and we maybe also need to define styles or ground overlays. So these are sort of the supporting feature types that allow us to structure the document. And then we get the output. So we'll see lots of output.
We'll see that again, yeah.
So why don't we pop back and
I'm on it.
You got the poll going on there?
So we want to know what you're interested in. So this is some of the stuff we're going to cover today. We want to know, what do you prefer here? What's most interesting? Time series, which Dean's going to show, WebSockets, which isn't necessarily KML, but I'm going to show that in the end. Network links, which I'll show in just a minute. Web map tiling, so making those tiles for Google Maps with your own data, or things like 3D visualizations and fly-throughs. So the results are rolling in now. What's your favorite there, Dean? Would you say?
I guess time series. I like doing the.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah,
they're pretty cool time series.
I think somebody I noticed in the questions, do we support video formats, and we're not quite there yet in terms of video, full-on video, but well, we're going to see something pretty close to it.
It is actually, yeah, using images and things. Absolutely.
So we do support time series. So I guess you could say you could
it's close to video.
You could process slices or images one by one, and eventually another tool could assemble them into a movie.
Yeah, and my favorite probably WebSockets. It's a new thing. People haven't necessarily heard a lot about it, but it's pretty cool.
So how many people?
We're about 70%. I think we'll just give it right about now. I think we'll call it there. So I'll close that poll. I'm going to share it. And web map tiling, actually a huge amount of people interested in that. So we did that demo in last year's version of this webinar, but we won't be doing it this time. However, on FMEpedia, so we'll show you the link at the end. You can go there and search for web map tiling. You get a bunch of demos show how to do it, and it's a web map tiler transformer that allows you to do that. Really easy to tile up your data for Google Maps.
And now that you mentioned it, there are tons of really cool examples on FMEpedia, and of course many related to KML. So that's one of the resources we'll remind you about.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So I think we will now go on to, should be hidden now. Okay.
Okay. Oh yeah, we got, I think we've got a demo now.
Demo time. Okay, so I'm going to just steal back the presentership here.
Right.
If that's even a word. It is now. No one can correct me, so that's the one nice thing about one-way communication. And I will get down to that. Real-time transit demo. Okay, so we've got some, I want to show basically a KML network link and kind of show you an actual workspace that shows styling effectively. And I'm going to start by bringing up Google Earth. Here we go. We've got a transit network loaded into Google Earth. But I want to see where the buses and things like that are located in real time. So the way that Google Earth handles that is through a network link, which basically goes back to the server, asks for the data at a regular occurrence, basically refreshes that. Now with FME Server, if I bring that up, we have a service that allows you to, well, effectively hit run on this KML network link. You get a KML network link, which you can double click, and then it'll pop up, and there is authentication in this case. So I want to make sure I'm showing my screen. I am. Excellent. I can log in. I can turn this authentication off if I want, but it's just a security feature. And what happens now is it brings in the bus locations.
Are these where all the buses are right now? Or?
This is where they are right now, absolutely.
Really?
And as I zoom in, we'll see. Oh, it went red. That's never good. Let's try and refresh it. It refreshes once, and let's see if we can get it to refresh another time. There we go. Okay, so it's working. You can actually see the buses moving around, and these arrows actually show the direction of travel as well. And yeah, it's refreshed every, I think 5 seconds is what it's set up here, but you can refresh and go back to the server at any time you want.
So who's controlling, like, is this a push or a pull of the data?
This is actually a pull of the data from FME Server, which looks at a SQLite database. We'll go take a look at the workspace.
Mm-hmm.
The actual data is provided by TransLink, pulled down by a third-party application or vendor named TransitDB.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in the Vancouver area, you have heard of them. They actually, technically, they interpolate the data, and the bus locations are actually interpolated a little bit. So it may not be exactly there, but the main point is kind of showing that this KML network link can go back to FME Server and ask for the current data, the real-time data.
So then workspace is being run how often?
The workspace is run every 5 seconds, and that's what you configure in the KML network link here. Yeah.
Right. So really the Google Earth is calling that
Absolutely.
workspace on the server.
Absolutely. And so you can see in terms of styling, there's the arrows show the direction, and also you can see the different colors for the lines. If we zoom in, what you're going to see show up is bus stops actually show up.
Oh, wow.
So it's something that you don't see when you're zoomed out, and the reason being is it's just too much data for your screen then, right? It would be too confusing. So you make it use a region to define that once you've zoomed in enough, the region becomes large enough, you define the size it has to be, it activates, and then that layer appears. And there you can see the bus flying by there.
Cool. So region is really Google's term for that kind of scale control.
Scale, yeah, dependency.
Visual visibility.
Yeah, exactly,
yeah.
exactly. And those buses are just a-flying today. So that's the KML network link. Now I want to kind of dive in and look at a few things about how they were made. So
I would have to say those buses look like they're moving quicker than when I'm waiting for them.
Yeah.
At least here in Surrey.
And sometimes they don't show up too, which is not always the best.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got to make this into a mobile app.
I want to show first how the transit network data was styled. This data is pulled down from TransLink in a CSV format called general. What is it called? General Transit Data Specification.
Yeah.
There you go.
GTFS.
GTFS.
I can see there, yeah.
Used to be called Google Transit Feed Google Transit Data Specification, but it was changed to be more more general, actually.
So it became sort of like an open standard when they changed
it. Did technically, yeah.
Google to general.
That's right.
It's kind of handy.
Yeah. So we bring down CSV. You turn it in, since CSV is not spatial, you turn it into a spatial point. With KML, you have to set the coordinate system because it needs to go out to lat long. Down here, we're filtering out based on what type of line. So these are the transit routes themselves, or routes. We're filtering out based on the type, and then we come over here and we style it. So Expo line is a type of train, a SkyTrain route. We wanted that to be, and this is a KML styler, we wanted that to be blue. We wanted it to be a width of 5, and we wanted a label on it as well. So if we look back there, we would see a label on that. If we look down here for the Millennium line, so just a different train line, we've got the colors yellow. It's a wider color, wider line, I should say, still creating labels, and so on and so forth. One cool thing that we're doing in here, which Dean alluded to, is there are a bunch of KML format attributes underneath the hood, and one of them is called draw order. So in this case, we wanted to have the Expo line actually show up on top of the other lines. So to do that, we set the draw order, KML draw order. That's a special format attribute. It's all documented. You can look it up. But that's a special attribute that goes into that KML to make that line show up.
Now, might I find that documented?
It's a good question. I'm not sure. No, it's right here under Help, FME Readers and Writers. You can go in there and find all of that information. We try to expose via the transformers the most commonly used format attributes and functionality. Draw order is a little bit less commonly used. Okay, we're going to keep going here. Here are the actual transit stops. So those are those bus stops that only showed up once we zoomed in. And how was that done, you might ask, which is a great question.
Yeah, I wish I had that question.
I should have let you ask that. But here we read all from GTFS again, CSV, make points. Then we use a region setter transformer. So if I come in here, I'll just drag it over. What we're saying is we're defining a box on the Earth that as you zoom in, it gets larger. And we're saying that once that box becomes 24,000 pixels, which is way bigger than the screen, obviously, once that box becomes that large, then that layer will appear. And a lot of people ask, well, how did you come up with that number? It's completely trial and error. You put in a number, you zoom in, the layer shows up, you like that, then you got it.
So which of those wins? I mean, you've got the min-max XY.
Yeah.
So that is just the size of what's being displayed, like that's the extent.
That's this hidden invisible box that as you zoom in becomes larger, and when it hits this size,
okay, when that min-max
activates,
gets that big.
Exactly.
Okay. So
yeah,
they're related.
Absolutely. And then again, we've got a test filter filtering things out. And if we look at, actually, I'm going to look at this one right here. This is the C bus. Nope, it's the West Coast Express, one of the bus lines. This is the old school way of setting KML attributes.
Yeah, I was expecting a KML styler to open up when you clicked on that.
That's right. Label color, icon, the location of the icon for that place mark can all be set in the KML styler. This is the old school way of doing things. It's harder because you need to know the names.
It looks simpler because it's,
It looks simpler, but then you got to know the names.
You actually have to know and you also have to know the code for that particular color.
You can tell that the person who built this workspace was a bit old school in some ways and a bit new school in other ways.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of a hybrid.
Hybrid. So I just wanted to show that workspace, and then I'm going to show the one where they're actually where we're actually reading the current locations.
So how many workspaces are actually part of this demo?
This is just one here. I mean, there's a few, but this is the main one that is doing the update.
Okay.
Here it is reading from SQLite. Again, filtering out. Now this is the actual vehicle location, if you will, the bus or the train. Coming over. What are we doing in here? Again, we're going old school. We could use a KML styler for setting the bus place mark and setting the color and the label. The person who did this chose to use the format attributes themselves. But again, KML styler is the recommended approach here. Yeah. And then one really cool thing here is based on an attribute coming in, it's either, you can tell the direction of travel effectively. So they filter out based on the direction of travel, and then if it's northbound, they change the KML name to have this little kind of up arrow.
Oh, so that'd be handy if you've got a couple of buses near the same intersection.
Exactly.
You don't know which one's going where.
Exactly. So they filter that out based on an attribute, and then they set the label here. And again, this could be done with the KML property setter. So that's probably the preferred method for doing this. However, this works as well.
Cool.
And then out to KML. So that is kind of a quick whirlwind tour through some styling, through some network links, and some property setting. There's so much more you can do with KML, and Dean's going to show us some.
And actually, well, I think that workspace is just going away now, but the default behavior, I'll mention that I can see there, and even in terms of the structuring.
Yeah.
The default behavior is feature types become one level of folder.
That's true.
So we'll see in a minute how to control that.
That is true. Yeah.
So I guess I can
Steal
take
that.
control back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a second here. Yeah. Try to make a little smoother transition this time. Don't want to let you guys see our last slides before we get there. So.
So people always write into support and say, how can I do folders and balloons as well, actually? How can I get fancy with balloons?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, folders and balloons both seem to be pretty popular, not just on birthdays, but with KML, they're popular year-round. So I've got a demo that does a bit of both. I've actually got two demos, so we'll just jump right into it. I'll just click on the output and then we'll see what that looks like. Got some data. I guess we're big fans of transit around here. We're subconsciously trying to influence you all to take transit to work or something.
That's right.
That must be it. Or I don't think we're not on the transit payroll. We're not getting any royalties for this at all.
Well, I'm headed down to Oklahoma City in September, so I don't know about this transit thing, but okay.
Well, you're going to be taking public transit if you're in a plane. It's still public.
Okay, fair enough.
I guess. So the trick here is, I'm talking about folder structure. I'll show you right off the top. It's easy in KML if you, as I said, feature type by default becomes a separate folder in the KML file. Now, why don't you want everything at the top level? Like if you just download some freebie shaped a KML tool off the web, it might just spew out all your data at one level. But then you'll double click on it, and you'll just have a nice list of about 20,000 features here on the left side of your navigation pane, which kind of can be a bit of a pain to look at.
It's not the most elegant.
Yeah. So really, folders are your friends. Learn how to use folders, and it can help a lot. It can allow users to do display control and to find the data that they need. So you can see what I have here is I've got two levels. I've got bus versus rail, and then within the bus, I kind of have the buses that are linked to the rail. So the metro buses are the ones that actually, as you can see, I turn off the non-metro ones, and you can see those blue lines go away. And so only the metro ones are the ones that are actually connected in some way to the rail line. Now, why would I care? Well, I'm a big fan of trains, so if I want to make sure my route to work includes a little ride on the train, well, this is one way to do it.
If I'm renting or something, I don't want to be in the blue necessarily.
Yeah. I mean, there again, sometimes like I know in the Vancouver area, the SkyTrain service is a bit more frequent than some of the bus service. So yeah, if you want to live somewhere where you can get somewhere quick, you probably don't want to be in the blue.
All right.
And then the nifty thing about this is that I can actually click on one of these routes, And this is where now we're into the balloon side of things. So really, the balloons give you a lot of control because they accept HTML. And so by definition, when you've got HTML, you can basically plug in anything from the web that you want. And in this case, we're actually integrating this with FME Server. So right off the top, it gives me the name of the street. It gives me the route number, so that's dynamic. If I click on a different route location, I'm going to get a different code. And then I can look at that data. Now, if I want more information, maybe I actually want the bus stops. Now, I didn't include bus stops at this level because there's thousands of them, and it's a bit too busy for the global view. But if I want to look at one route, I can just click on PDF. It's going to go away to server and render that as an actual PDF file, and then I can open that up natively in Adobe. And now you can actually see all of the bus stops for that particular route. And seeing how FME is semantically aware, we're actually preserving all of the feature data, all the attribution associated with those bus stops. And additional information you might get in there, like what times of day the bus comes to that stop, that sort of thing. So that's one way of seeing that data. And another way is if I go back to another one, I can actually download this as a shapefile. So click on that and it gives me a link to a shapefile. And this, again, this is from FME Server. I can click on that, download the file, and I won't bother viewing it, but you can see the shape data is all there. And then the third way I've got an example of here is we can send this particular route to me as an email. So lots of ways of basically offering data. Essentially what we're doing here is using this as a data distribution platform, not just a viewing environment. So I go to my email and it goes, here we are, FME job succeeded, and here's your data. So I can just pop in there and extract it and open that up. So if I look at, for example, just the bus stops, I can view that in Inspector. And neat thing, of course, in Inspector is that it allows me to have a table view. And so now you can see, if you're actually going to use this as input into your GIS, you'd have all that, the rich data model there. So, and now how did all that get put together? Just show you very quickly the workspace behind it. So here we go. And it's not too complicated. I'll focus more on the two aspects of configuring the KML property setter here. And if I open up the editor, you can see that really all I'm doing is typing in HTML. And there are, of course, some functions here to pull in the values from FME features. So the line ID is key because this HTML has embedded links to FME Server, which runs on a specific route number. So whether or not, one case it's routes to shape, and the other case it's routes to DWG or PDF.
So really combining the ability of some pretty simple HTML link to FME Server, you can do a lot with your data, really.
Yeah, so it's quite powerful, and you guys can get a hold of a copy of this when we email out the packages. And then we have different styling per layer, as Aaron already showed you. And I just wanted to explain very briefly how the folders work. So here I define two top-level folders. And so I have the special folder feature type, and these are just folder objects. You can just think of them as containers. They don't have any geometry. They're specifically just placeholders for folder names. And so we have bus and we have rail. And then I define both a name and a parent for the subfolders. So KML parent here is bus, and its name is metro. And then later on up here, what I can do is I can assign every feature can be a child of metro or non-metro. So based on what the spatial association of whether or not it connects to the metro line, define the parent name.
Wow.
So yeah, basically start at the top level, and you have to essentially define an ID, and then all the children point to that ID with the KML parent.
Makes sense.
And I think this is one you still need to do with the creator or with
Yeah.
an attribute setter. There's a specific.
We might look at making it easier in the future, but you'll get that workspace in the download, so that's great.
And I won't open them up, but there's a couple of other work. Each of these workspaces basically just goes from the database to DWG or PDF, but that's not KML, so you guys can look at that when you download it. All right, so that's the, and I think I have one more. If that wasn't enough balloons for you, I do have one other one, and really quick.
I'd love to see a slideshow right in the balloon. Is that possible?
Yeah, funny you should ask. Now I will, before I actually run the slideshow, I will notice that where did we go? We went off somewhere off Africa. That's where you're going to go if your coordinate system maybe isn't quite right. But anyway, let's look at this slideshow. And well, to be honest, it's not my cat, but this is what my cat looked like when I brought our new pug home.
Your cat's not a pug fan.
Well, I think our pug likes having fun, and our cat doesn't. So, yeah.
We got a question here. What's your cat's name?
Oh, my cat's name is Dory, and I think she's also grumpy because her brother Nemo is still in Bulgaria. But
oh, they're separated. It's kind of like the maybe that'll be the Nemo 2.
Yeah,
their cats trying to get together.
Well, they still stay in touch via Skype. They meow back and forth, but yeah.
So
still grumpy.
So this is 2014 functionality technically. This was added last week, and so you can get it in the beta. But let's show very, very quickly what the workspace is.
Absolutely. I'll just pop open 2014. As you can see, we can run 13 and 14 side by side, and I'll just throw that workspace in there. And you can see that we have a new section added to the KML property setter, which allows you to attach additional files to the KML document package.
So in the past, just to be clear, in the past you had to reference these off some website, so you had to maintain them separate from the KML file, and then if they get deleted or there's a firewall in the way, you couldn't get to those files.
You just see these broken image links.
So this is...
And also you can see I have HTML content, but instead of actually having the actual text of the HTML embedded here, it's just pointing to a file. And on disk, you can see that there's this description HTML file here that's being pointed at. And the previous transformer just reads the contents of that file,
brings it in,
and then
that's where you stick it in the balloon there.
Sticks it in. Yeah.
So that's a little preview of 2014. You can get the beta with that functionality.
Yeah, that's working now.
So what else we got? We've got little time series coming up. Raster maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
we've got about 3 or 4 minutes.
Interests of solving all the world's problems here, or at least maybe simulating them. We're just going to have a quick look at a time series demo, and also looking at some raster output for a change. Now, you guys might be used to seeing Google's Earth when you look at Google Earth. Well, Google's Earth is gone. What happened to it? Well, what we have here is essentially a data cube, and it's got a raster image for every year, and it is essentially a model of the emissions based on land use over the last 300 years. And so you can see in eastern North America, that's where development started happening, and so that's where the emissions started. And you can kind of see it spreading to the west as we progress towards the 20th
Is this real-time emissions, or?
I did try real-time emissions first, but it was kind of a boring demo because it just kind of sat there. I guess, we're not emitting. Although, I think I saw a little change because the emissions are growing. But no,
Right.
I think when we go over 300 years, it's more pronounced.
So you've taken a bunch of different maps in a data, what you call a data cube. To me, it's almost like hundreds of different raster maps that show the emissions over time, and you've placed them all into Google Earth in a time series here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there was basically a big stack of data, and what I did was essentially explode that apart, and then the original source data, really you can't view it without having a time control. That's one thing we don't have. You can see a big stack of values, so there's many bands to that raster data.
Here's coming up just now.
Yeah, but there's all these different bands, but you're only looking at the last layer. And so the only way to view that was using, I'll show you the workspace really quick, and then I'll hand it back to you. The only way to view that was with this workspace. It's actually not that complicated. We just have a raster band separator, which blows those all, takes that one big data set, breaks it out into individual features, and then we have a list that we have to index to pull out the year number.
Yeah.
And then we use that year number to define the time step. So the key transformer here is the KML time setter. So that year that we get from the index, we just call it 0101 because it's not there's no specific date.
Right.
And so that gives us our time period start and end.
Okay.
And that allows us essentially to make this KML movie.
Wow. Wow. So we've done a lot today, but we're going to do more even.
Okay. What more do we have?
We're on to WebSockets, which starts to come away from KML, but I will bring it absolutely back here. I'm going to make myself the presenter and show my screen, and let's see what happens there.
So what is WebSockets all about?
What is WebSockets?
Is it anything to do with socks?
It has to do with socks, but actually your definition is the simplest, I think. What is it, Dean? What are they?
Well, I just thought of a pipe. So it's a pipe that you can just funnel data through back and forth.
They absolutely are data pipes. Really, when the web was created, there was the idea of one-way communication where the client actually clicks a link, goes to the server, requests something, and it comes back. So that was really a one-way communication. But and things have evolved in the last 5 years for sure, 10 years, where now servers are wanting to push data out to clients, and so they've built technologies such as AJAX and long polling to accommodate that. But there are things like latency issues. It's not standardized necessarily. People are taking different approaches. WebSockets is an approach to do low latency, real-time, high-speed, full duplex, which means bidirectional communication from one node to the other node. So the easiest way to think about this is a web browser going to a server. So you can think about a Google Maps, maybe a Google Maps application going to FME server to ask for data in real time without the overhead of HTTP. So it hooks straight up to a socket. And,
so the big difference then between that and regular HTTP is that you don't have to reestablish the connection. Is it?
Absolutely.
What is it? What do you say? Continuous or?
It's continuous, absolutely. And also they do have a solution called long polling which does that, but it still is the overhead of HTTP. WebSockets is pure TCP connection. So I'm going to show a couple demos. I'm going to show them really fast. And this is, again, a preview of 2014. This just got added a month ago, so you can start playing with it now. Let's take a look at some demos here.
So I guess there's both changes to desktop and server needed for this, because there's new transformers and there's a new service.
Absolutely, we're going to see that. Here, this is built with 2013 in FME. There's a workspace always running that accepts WebSocket messages, does transformation, and then passes the result back. What is this? This is a bunch of zip code centroids in the US. As I zoom out and pan around, the extent of this map is sent down to FME, data is extracted, and then pushed straight back up to the client. So as I move, you can see that very quickly, very smooth, all of those points are being loaded. This is what we talk about when we say low latency. Look at how fast that data is coming through onto this web map.
So what's going through sockets? It's the point data, or is it all the maps? Where are the
It's
maps?
basically a JSON message. The point data is what's coming back
Right.
to the browser. The extent is being sent down as JSON. JSON is being sent to this web browser, to this client, and it's being displayed.
And then the background is just
The background
Google
is
Maps.
just straight up Google Maps.
Now, is this a forest fire that just started? Or
Yeah,
what
did you see
happened?
that? As soon as I clicked on the zip code boundaries, it went to server, it asked for, it went to FME, it asked for them, and they stream back in real time.
Okay.
Look how quick that data comes back. These are full-on polygons coming from client to server.
Okay, so not just point data, you can actually.
Polygons, absolutely. Really, this is how Gmail, Facebook, those are the kind of applications we're thinking of. Real-time gaming, real-time web mapping like this. This is where you're going to use this type of functionality. Now this is two-way directional. We're sending extents down, we're getting data back. Here's a more one-directional example of basically a dashboard. Again, using WebSockets. So FME, in this web page is hooked up to FME, and FME is sending back the locations of vessels and also buses in real time. So as these vessels move, we have an ID on them.
Right.
That allows us to update the location. Same with the buses. You see them kind of move around. So again, it's all about real-time communications rather than the server always asking and going, hey, or the client rather than the client always going to the server and saying, hey, is there new data, polling all the time, which is heavy. We have this push capability now, pushing the data to the client.
So we're not running a new workspace. Back in that first example,
Yeah.
the first transit example, every time we wanted an update, we actually had to fire off a
The
new
Google Earth.
process
Yes.
on server. And that's not happening here? Is it the same workspace?
Exactly. It's a different workspace, but the transformations would be similar.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Google Earth example with the KML network link is really the old school polling method. This is the new school push method where it's not even client server anymore, it's node to node. You could have many different nodes in a network. It could be one sensor network pushing to another sensor network. Things are going to get really cool in the next few years in terms of pushing data around.
So this will scale a lot better.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
way better. The latency is much lower.
Mm-hmm.
Now I want to show just very briefly in the last, actually it's 8:59, so we're going to go over by a few minutes, but we will send out an email with a link to this webinar, and we will also, and send you the link to the data as well. But for those who have to run off, I just wanted to thank you for your time, but we're going to keep going with a few more things here.
Yeah, if you can't hang on, we'll give you a few more pointers.
Yeah, so we're actually going to look at the FME approach to this in 2014. So how do we do it in 2014? Well, actually, before I jump into the FME specific demo, the nuts and bolts of it, I want to bring up the PowerPoint and talk very briefly. Let's do the demo first, actually. Yeah. So this is something I built with actual 2014, not 2013, which the last two were built with. And here I've got a workspace. I'm just going to run it.
And is there a KML angle to all this? I was just wondering.
There is. It's coming up.
Okay.
It's coming up. If you left already, well, it's too late. But if you're still here, what have I got here? I've got a web page that hooks up to FME, and what it will do is it basically just buffers. So if I click a point here, it will buffer. So that went all the way down to FME, through FME and FME server, did a transformation, came back up. So as I click around, this is going full all the way through FME. It's being buffered. Buffer is just an easy example to understand.
Wow, so you've got this almost like some kind of web GIS going on here, where
It's
you're
very
digitizing
close.
points.
It's very close, right? You could use it for that. Yeah.
Or this could be locations where we're gonna set up, I don't know, an FME store or something.
Yeah, could be. Really the point is you're sending something down to the server, a JSON message, which I'll show in a second, and then it's being processed, transformed, and being pushed right back up.
And I guess it's not, could anybody be viewing that output? It wouldn't necessarily have to just be communication between you and the server and back.
Yeah.
Because those two are really loosely coupled, right? Those two processes.
That's right. That's right. It's really, you can do everything you could do with long polling and AJAX. You can, and traditional HTTP, you can do now with WebSockets. So it's like a superset, I would say.
Yeah. So if somebody, if let's say people had mobile devices and they were just hitting a button saying, there's an accident or there's a problem here on the road, somebody else could be looking at a map that just shows all of the road problems.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah, and they would see that in real time, just like we saw with the vessels or.
Very cool.
So how does it work? Again, this is 2014. Little diagram of it. The web browser uses a send function to send through a WebSocket down to FME, and here's where we got those new transformers: the WebSocket receiver and the WebSocket sender. So FME, the workspace, receives the message, does the buffer in our case, and then sends that message on to, well, it can send it anywhere, but in this case I'm using FME server as a relay effectively to relay it back to the web browser, to that JavaScript.
So that FME workspace is always running?
It's always running. This is a new sort of frontier for FME, always running workspaces. And we've got a few people that are doing that already, and it works well.
So that particular workspace doesn't need server to run. It just sits wherever you happen to have it, as long as there's a port open in the firewall that allows that data to pass through.
Absolutely. That's a good segue. Here is the workspace right here, and I had this pulled up and running at the same time. So you could see that as I click here, you can see the coordinates change. This message is going through this workspace.
Oh, and it's logging it?
And it's being logged.
Oh, very cool.
So if we take a closer look at the workspace, we've got the WebSocket receiver here, which allows you to connect up, send in a message. The message comes in a JSON format, so we convert that to FME. What's the JSON look like? It's very simple. Here it is right here.
Yeah, but I see KML. You said it's JSON. I see KML in there.
Well, you're 2 steps ahead of me, actually. So the first thing we do is we convert it into to FME. So we create a point, we set the coordinate system, we do a buffer. That's the transformation. Could be anything. But yeah, we're going to Google Maps, so why don't we just give them KML?
Oh, very good.
Give that web page KML. And so what do? We extract KML.
So the KML is put inside that JSON?
It's put inside, and here's the actual JSON message with KML as one of the attributes of that. We then use the WebSocket sender to send that information over to FME server. And then FME server takes care of it, and here I was showing basically the messages coming through. So with FME server, you can watch those messages come through. Let me pull up the web page, and as I click, you'll see this refresh. You can see the messages flying through FME server, and then ultimately back up to the web page. Now, before I used to have to do a bunch of Python coding to get this done.
So how much scripting did you have to do for this?
I'm gonna show you how much scripting I had to do right now.
Like just showing off your scripting talents here.
My scripting talents, right here. I define the WebSockets here, just to see. I defined the Google Map, and that's it. That is all. Wow. That is the entire scripting that I did to create that demo. WebSockets and the Google Map.
And really, that's only on is that on the client side or the server? That's just on the client side. And how much scripting did you have to do on the server side?
Absolutely none. No,
really?
No coding required to do the server side of this. So if you're interested in WebSockets, real-time communication, whether it's with a web map or who knows what you're doing, this is a great solution. So download the beta. You can go safe.com/beta, and you can take a look.
And this will be part of the stuff we send out?
This will be part of it.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely. You get the workspaces, you get the web page.
So you can try this at home.
You absolutely can. Yeah. So I know that went a little bit over time, but we'll flip back here.
I think it was worth it.
You think it was worth it?
Yeah, for me it was anyway.
All right. That's what I like to hear. Here, just showing the FME server side. You'll get the PowerPoint slide as well, so no worries there. That's the complete setup for server. Pretty easy. No scripting involved.
And if you want to brush up on the whole sort of publication topic subscription stuff, there's lots of things on notification.
Yeah, in the training would be, and we'll show a link to the training coming up. Save the dates. So somebody is going to do a webinar on the 28th for CAD and GIS.
Yeah, I can't remember who that was. It might have been me, actually.
I think Dean's going to be kicking it old school, August 28th, showing off some CAD GIS. And then September 10th, a mystery webinar. I have no idea about this one, but somebody's going to do how to consume, leverage, and publish web services.
Yeah, sounds like a good one.
And again, all the webinars are recorded, and they're up at safe.com/webinars. FME training for KML, topical, I'd say.
Yeah, so in about a month's time, if you haven't had enough, or you're getting hungry for more KML by the time September rolls around, you can sign up for that. How much is that going to cost?
I believe it's $0.
Unless you want to get it from Aaron, and then he'll charge you $100.
You can definitely send me money. I'll give you my PayPal account. But yeah, all of our training is free online. So just go to safe.com/training. You can get the server training, which oh, I see. Oh, it just updated. We're on a lag here, but you can go to safe.com/training, sign up for the KML training, or as Dean said, the FME server training if you want to know more about notifications or anything about FME server. That's a great training. We talked about resources we would share links to.
Yeah.
FMEpedia.
So FMEpedia is a big one. That's really our knowledge base, and so it's continually evolving. There's always constantly new content being added. And then there are things like the FME Evangelist, there's the Twitter, the YouTube channel. So lots of resources there for you to get started.
Yeah, and there's a whole community on FMEpedia of people that can, it's like a forum basically too.
Right.
So really interactive aspect there. Yeah, and just to take it home, to summarize, if you are still with us.
Yeah, there's still quite a few people there.
Excellent.
Yeah, basically, FME allows you to transform virtually any data into KML, and of course you can read KML. You can fully master the style and the structure of the KML to suit how you want to present it. And then leveraging real-time data and time series, we had a couple of examples of that.
Yeah.
And really, it's all about integrating KML into your workflow. You can either start with KML and integrate it into other workflows, like we've seen with some of the download and emailing, or you can start with the workflow and feed it into the KML. So really leveraging KML, but not just having it as individual output, but fully integrated.
And I'm super pumped about the last one. As my friend Iris would say, WebSockets are truly very, very sexy technology, as you will. She challenged me to talk about WebSockets, and hopefully I did a good enough job, Iris. I think they're sexy, but it's really it's up to you to tell me if they're sexy, Iris. All right, that's enough saying the words.
Just programming us to run out and get WebSockets.
That's right. That's right. So Q&A. Do we have time for Q&A? Well, throw us a few questions. Why not? We're here, so let's see if there are any questions that we want to answer here live.
Let's see any towards the end there. When will you be doing a webinar on Google Maps engine? That's pretty new.
That will actually there are talks about doing that, but there's no date as of yet. The audio came back, which is good.
We will be sharing the workspaces, so some people have been asking about that. And
apparently,
can you use people? Somebody asked if they can use their data with our workspaces. There should be no problem. A lot of our workspaces aren't specific to. I mean, obviously, you're going to have to drop the source feature type and re-add, but other than that, KML data is set up to be global, so it should work anywhere in the world. So assuming you're on Earth, that should be good.
Yeah, somebody's asking about showing a lot of different vehicles on Google Earth at the same time. You can use what's called the Google Earth Network Link Update Control, which will allow you to it's kind of an in-between between WebSockets and polling. Basically, you ask for updates. And there's an example of that on our website. So that was John asking about that.
Yeah, somebody asked if you can read from DGN. Certainly, and we'll tune into my webinar at the end of the month on the 28th to find out about reading from DGN or going from CAT to GIS. So that's certainly something we support. Somebody else asked about reading from ECW.
Yeah.
Again, KML will not store ECW, but FME can translate from ECW to the TIFF or JPEG or PNG that KML does support. So, and then it's up to you to structure the ground overlays as needed, and there's all sorts of ways.
I think if you just go new and generate a workspace ECW to KML, it should do the right thing.
Yeah, it should.
So I mean that'll be like Dean was saying that. Well, it'll give you a basic KML file, But as Dean you were going to say, it's up to you to structure it.
Yeah, if you have tons of data, you'll quickly overload Google Earth as a client. So then you have to do things like tile, regionate, maybe do web tiling, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Question: do I need FME Server 2014 to access sockets? You don't. You will need either FME desktop or server 2014. Both of them have the capability in them. Combined is probably the best approach, but they are 2014. So 2013, it's a little bit harder, and so we focus on 2014 for WebSockets. How can I name KML elements based on SQL fields? Probably using the property setter. That's a good question, and I would say probably the property setter would do that.
And again, don't forget about the reader-writer doc, because that's really a huge resource of information. There's tons of stuff in there, so do check that out. That'll basically explain under the hood how FME is modeling and generating KML. Somebody's asking about styling for speed as well as location. I think maybe that what they meant is speed as well as direction. So yeah, maybe those slow buses, you could have a red if this bus is stopped and it's crawling along at a 0 to 10 kilometers an hour. You might want to avoid waiting for that bus. So yeah, there'd be no problem doing that as long as now if velocity wasn't part of the transmission, we could always compute. If you're running this every 5 seconds, we could actually calculate the length of distance traveled and compute the speed. So that's something FME can always do, value added on your data.
Yeah,
sure.
Basically filtering and doing what you need. There's a question here about clarify the point about the LL84 projection. KML data is always stored in lat long. So if you're reading in data and into FME and it doesn't have a coordinate system, FME will say, I don't know how to get this into lat long. Even if it already is in lat long, it wants to make sure. So you basically have to tell, in your workspace, especially if you're coming from CSV or something like that doesn't have a coordinate system, you have to tag it with the coordinate system. And then the writer effectively goes, oh, okay, it's lat long, or if it's not lat long, it can reproject it.
Yeah, so you can have a coordinate system setter to LL84. We just say LL84 because that's the FME name for that coordinate system.
Yeah, good point.
But in which case, for the web Mercator, you only need to worry about that if you're building, what, tile caches or something?
Web map tiler, yeah.
Yeah, so that's another coordinate system related to Google.
Yeah, which was 900913.
Yeah.
Was the EPSG? Did you know that's spelled Google?
Yeah.
If you turn it upside down?
It's like when you're spelling on a calculator.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was funny.
Cool. All right.
I think probably that's it for questions. Seem to be slowing down, so
so we'll probably
call it good there.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Looks like we had a lot of interest today, and as Aaron said, this will be the recording of this will be up on our website, and we'll distribute both the PowerPoint and the examples. And certainly you can try this at home. Download an evaluation if you don't have FME. You can try it out for free. Play with it, and have a go. Yeah.
Don't be shy about contacting us at safe.com/support if you get stuck or you get into a workspace and you're wondering how to start. We'd much rather you contacted us and to get started than didn't use the product. So that'd be the last thing I'd leave you with.
Yeah. Support's always there to lend a hand.
All right, thanks. Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye for now.